Hi, everybody. I'm Frank Gladstone from asifa-hollywood, and we've got some spectacular people here today to talk about a spectacular movie that's just finished. And I'm going to ask them questions, and they're going to answer the questions. But first, I'm going to introduce them. And I'm going to start with Byron Howard. Byron, say hello.
Hello. Hi, Frank.
Hi.
Nice
Actually, Byron and I go pretty far back to the beginning of his career, actually.
That's true. That's true.
I have a little tiny bit to do with that. Not that much.
You have kind of a bunch, actually.
And so graduate of Evergreen University in Washington, ended up in what we used to call the Fish Bowl in Orlando at the old Disney Studio, Florida.
Yep. Frank ran the internship that I went through in Florida.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Just so you guys know, I think he tried 4 or 5 times before he got in. Was that right, Byron?
That's right. 5 times. 5 times.
Yeah, there you go.
What the hell, Frank? Come on, man.
And then started off your career, started traditionally, and have directed a lot of things. One particular is Utopia with Jared, who I'm going to introduce next. And here you are with this new movie, ENCANTO. So, and Jared's next, who happens to be a trombonist, which is
yes.
We might ask you to play, maybe
I prepared something, so that's perfect. I was hoping you'd ask.
Maybe the bridge from Bolero, the trombone bridge from Bolero.
Sure.
Great.
Yeah, I'll whip that out real quick.
Yeah, that'll be good. The next person is Charise Castro Smith.
Oh,
hi, Charise.
Hi.
How are you? Co-director and writer with Jared of this show. Is that correct?
Yes.
Get that right? Oh, good. Oh, good. I'm not always good with details. And we'll talk about that a little bit. And then Kira Lehtomaki, who I've known for now about a year or two, right?
Yeah.
Kira? Was going to be on the asifa board, we hoped, and then got some kind of big job with some movie and had the big off. And finally, Lorelay Bové. Did I get that right? Lorelay Bové, right?
Lorelay Bové, yes.
From Spain initially, and at Art Center, was that right? Or CalArts? CalArts, all the way from Spain. And then is the production designer. Kira's the, I didn't give your title, Kira, you're head of animation, right? 1 or 2 on the show.
Yes.
So I'm going to start asking you questions, and then hopefully you'll say things that'll engender more questions. So the first question I have, besides this being in Colombia, which I think is terrific, and by the way, when Walt did his South American tour years ago, when they sent him to South America, it's the Hands Across the Water, and it ends up being a couple of features that they made from those trips. He didn't go to Colombia. He flew over it. So now we're finally there. I understand that some of you or all of you went to Colombia. Is that correct? At one point?
We did about 3.5 years ago.
Yep.
Several of us. We actually meant to have many groups go down, but COVID cut that short, unfortunately. So many of the folks on screen right now
currently nodding. We're not able to go.
They were all supposed to go in March of 2020, yeah?
Oh.
And so that got
it was literally the week after we locked down. We had our tickets and everything. It was all packed. I was ready to go.
Oh, man. Well, I
Oh,
understand, Byron, you and Jared, you guys were going to invite me too, and I didn't get to go.
I know. Come on.
Yeah, you were
Frank.
supposed to be with us. I will say it was one of the most incredible trips. Obviously, every Disney animated movie, we are able to do this really immersive research. That trip, I think, is one of those ones that I'll remember forever. Really changed, honestly, how we looked at the movie, and also just getting to know Colombia at that level, spending time with the families. I'm very happy that I was able to go. I'm very sad for them that the timing didn't work out, but we had lots of videos, and we met, honestly, so many friends that actually joined us for the rest of the movie. So I'm hopeful that everyone gets to go shortly once things open up.
Maybe they'll do some premiere, and you get to go. Maybe you can work that one out, Kira, and Laura, could go that way. Now, you said that it changed the scope of the movie. So I've got 2 questions about that. Was the scope of the movie now, or at least to me when watching it, it's about family, and it's about who's who in the family, and it kind of reminded me of Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh yeah, that's a good comment.
Because everybody has this some big festival, maybe it's not Thanksgiving, maybe it's another festival, where everybody comes back with the weird uncle and the quiet person who never speaks, and everybody's all different. And so was that kind of what you were planning? Because that's what the movie is about to me, I guess.
Yeah.
Is that what you were planning, or did being in Colombia change that?
Well, I think probably reinforced it. But I mean, we should all jump in on this. But
Yep.
like 5 years ago, when we started talking about this movie with Lynn, we really landed on this idea of telling a story about not just a family, but an extended family, where we had 12, literally kind of 12 main characters on screen at the same time, which was really a challenge, because we usually have you do a buddy movie, 2 or 3 characters kind of learn about each other. But the potential of really leaning into what family is, and not only like how your family sees you, but also how you see your family, and sort of the challenge of the perspective that you have in your own family. That's where it got really relatable, like you were saying, Frank, sort of like these family roles, like the rock of the family, the black sheep, the outcast of the family who gets blamed for certain things. The perfectionist, the nurturer, all those roles really felt universal, no matter where you were from. And then once about 3.5 years ago, when we did get to go to Colombia, I think we really saw that reflected in not only Colombian families, but also the environment and the culture, how it overlaps, like this crossroads of Latin America, where music and diversity and food and traditions all blend from everywhere in Latin America in this one amazing country. I think that's where the scope got way bigger. We knew we had a much bigger job, I think, than we had anticipated.
I'll also say it's it's crazy vibrant, like it's color everywhere. And so I think everyone you see on the screen, we came back and we had all these colors in our head, and Lorelay was able to really bring that to life in a way that we've never tried before. I think we saw like music and dances everywhere, and we knew that we had to represent this really joyous place in a way that felt true to life. And Kira, I don't know how Kira was able to do it, but like the amount of choreography for like 12 characters dancing at the same time, we've never attempted it before. And then I think the biggest thing was, we had heard that sort of magic runs in the streets of Colombia, and there was this tradition of magical realism. And Byron and I knew that we needed a huge amount of help with that. And so right after that is when we were so lucky that Charise said yes to joining our team, because has this amazing sensibility, both with magical realism, a true grounding. And I think that was like all of those pieces really came together as a result of that trip, and everyone you're seeing on the screen.
Well, here's an issue then, and I'm going to address this first to Charise. There's 12 characters. There's actually 13 characters. I count the house as a character.
Please.
Why did you sign up for that? How do you service 12 characters, 12 main characters? Now, of course, there's the protagonist, Maribel, of course, and Alma, the kind of antagonist, I guess, maybe, but not really, but anyway, why would a writer say, I'm going to go into a movie that's 2 hours long and I got to service 12 characters?
Yeah, it was definitely a big challenge and an exciting one. And I think, as Byron and Jared were saying, we really wanted each of these characters to feel like really sort of relatable family archetypes. So honestly, like with this huge family, we really started there. We're like, what are the family members that we can all sort of recognize? Like the perfect golden child, the strong, responsible one, the like sort of stoic matriarch. So like, what are these like family roles that everyone can kind of recognize? And yes, there's 12 of them.
and a house too.
Yeah,
which
actually 14. Abuelo Pedro, he's part of the family.
Yeah, that's true.
But no, it was an incredible challenge, and luckily we had just an extraordinary team from start to finish who helped us realize each of those characters really in like stunning, just unique detail. And I really give so much credit to Lorelay and to Kira as well for helping us make that happen. Because
I'm actually going to go to
never been able to do that without them. So yeah,
because the movie starts, it's like 20 zillion colors and all these characters in this exposition song. The first song, I'm going, how am I going to follow this? I'm going to try and of course it does come around, But at the beginning, it's just, you're stunned how much stuff is going on. And it's dancing, Kira, which is hard. In animation, it's hard. And Jared, you said there's all these characters going around. They all move differently. There's all this choreography, and then there's all this color that has to be, just throwing flowers all over the place. And there's a lightning storm, and who are they? What are they? How did you approach that, both of you? Because it weren't easy.
Yeah, no. Yeah, sure. No, for the art team, I mean, we have an amazing art team, of course. So like starting with our production designer, Ian Gooding, I was this associate production designer, and we really wanted to organize this film color-wise. We knew this had to be vibrant just because, you have Colombia. It's like Jared said, it's a vibrant, beautiful country. So just having that as a grounding, foundation. And then on top of that, we really wanted to art direct, like we had so many characters. So each of them have a specific color palette and are also broken down into different families, like the two families, like Pepa's side of the family, and then Mirabel's side of the family in the cooler tones. So we were just very careful orchestrating that to make sure that it's just nice and clear for the audience to follow. And as well as in that song, for example, it's just so vibrant, and the town, we had a specific color palette for that. Also, Jared and Byron and Charise really wanted that song to be very vibrant and colorful. So like it was just a lot of organizing, sort of like the colors and the backdrop, and just the characters read. We also work closely, of course, with the lighting team, and had a lot of like shadows, from the buildings and stuff, so that the characters would show up, because that song, it's really vibrant. It's very, hyped and heightened. So it was a lot of orchestration with different departments.
Kira, dancing.
Yeah, so animation is a team sport. And as I'm sure everybody is aware, I can't dance like that. And, some of our team members are very great dancers, but generally we're not known for our dancing. And so we had the most amazing choreographer and dance consultant. We had Jamal Sims and Kai Martinez, who actually stayed on as our dance consultant. And Kai is Colombian herself. And we had our one of our animation supervisors, Michael Woodside. He actually he got one of the in-person experiences on this film and got to go to the dance studio and help film the choreography. And we got to partner with layout really early on, where we sort of did a previs pass of the animation, and then they got to follow it up with the camera, so we could design the cameras and all of our animation around shooting the dance the best way it could be. And then Kai came in, and we found that she actually gave us animation notes, and we found that animators and dancers actually kind of speak a similar language. So she talks in sound effects. So she would give us notes in like, it's like, ba-da-ba, and she would just make these noises, and we knew exactly what she meant, because we often describe animation notes a similar way, especially over Zoom, because, sometimes that's a quicker way than drawing something and then showing the camera. So it was really, really great. But Kai was so instrumental in helping us through that, because not only did she bring traditional Colombian dances into sort of the whole choreography of the piece, but she could pinpoint for us exactly like, well, this is how you would hold the skirt, and this is how this movement should feel and not just look. And she would help us with our lines of action and all of these things that as animators we just love. And so it was really a joy to collaborate with her in that way, that I haven't had that kind of experience before at Disney.
I do a class on occasion in dance and animation, and I use clips, and I'm gonna steal a clip. It's fair use. Eventually I'll steal a clip from this to show that particular part of it. That would be great, because it's it's really hard to do dancing. And then you have that, you're of course dancing in a set with all that designing that goes on and all that playing. So you said the previs is kind of an interesting thing that you did.
Yeah.
In order to make sure they were moving around in the right spot.
Yeah, and you have to translate the dance onto the character so that it fits the physicality of the character, and it's not just like a one-for-one copy of what the live action is. So it was such a fun thing to dig into and learn about.
That's when you see where you've really taken time, where they're not all just dancing the same step in unison and so forth. I'm going to talk about magic realism a little bit, because that to me was kind of important when I watched the show. Charise, I think you've done other kind of magic realism kind of projects. You're a playwright. You've done several plays. You did the Hunchback of I'm trying to remember the title now. Yeah, not the Hunchback of Notre Dame, although that has a bit of magic realism in itself, that particular story too.
Yeah, I mean, I can just jump in. So, as Jared and I, as we're starting to work on the script, we knew that we really wanted this movie to be inspired by, influenced by magical realism. So we kind of had to make like a working sort of definition for what that meant to us. And I think the guiding principle that we tried to use as we were going forward was like that the magic in this movie was sort of born out of emotion, out of character, out of relationship, that it wasn't sort of like something that was coming from the outside, that it was driven by emotion, really. I think the best example of it in this film is kind of the moment that the Encanto is created. Abuela Alma is in this terrible situation. She's just had this awful loss, and just out of her unconditional love for her kids, just this safe haven, this like place of protection and a place for her children to thrive is born, and this candle is infused with that magic. So that was sort of the guidepost that we were using as we were thinking about how magic would function. And Jared and I also talked a lot about how we wanted this movie to be able to work if there was no magic in it whatsoever. So that like all the relationships, all the sort of character work would hold up without it, and then add the amazing, beautiful, fun, joyous frosting of cool magic on top of that. Right. So.
And oftentimes magical realism is rather dark. It's kind of scary. Charlie Kaufman's stuff, or that kind of thing. Satoshi Kon's magical realism stuff. A lot of the anime magical realism. This is celebratory. I mean, it has its dark moments, of course, but it's celebratory, and it just kind of expands that way. But did you start with this talisman, with this candle? Was that always part of it, or did that come about as you were developing this thing?
Jared,
well, I mean, that's all Charise, I will say. I think the smartest thing Byron and I ever did was, I think, by the way, we read like hundreds of scripts, and we came in one morning and literally we had the same script. We didn't know it, and we found it and said, "This is the person," and it was Charise's script. So I think the smartest thing we did was beg her to join us. This is the smartest thing we did, and then she said yes. But I think it was really starting with this. We knew we wanted this movie to be vibrant and joyous and just an immense amount of entertainment. But I think what Charise really brought that was so important is it had to have this emotional core that everything was built on. So it was all real. We were talking about a real family. They had real issues. I think like all of our families, family is super fun and great. And then there's some challenging parts. And I think that we needed to have both pieces of that. And I think that the idea that there was this candle and that sort of held the miracle that was given to Abuela Alma in that moment. I think Byron and I both read that for the first time because we weren't expecting it. Charise didn't say, "I'm going to go work on this opening myth with the candle." She just brought that in, and we were both like, it was so gorgeous and amazing and so expansive, and really, I think, hit the tone of what we were going for with Abuela's backstory. It's like one of those moments where like that's in the script forever. That's like 3 years ago. We're like that's in forever. You don't always know that, but we did with that.
One thing I think to. Oh, sorry. I was going to offer that real quick, Frank. I was going to say like one thing that happened with that great kind of backstory that Charise created and the influence of magical realism is that everything from that point on the magic got tied to emotion in a huge way and to the storytelling. So for our effects department, it was a really unique challenge because not only were they expected to produce stuff that looks like beautifully naturalistic, like water or wind or things that you'd expect in nature, which the film is full of, but there are cracks in the house. There's magic coming from this initial miracle. There's the magic of each person's individual gift. And so the effects it was really tough on them, I think, because they were part of the storytelling, and like they really had to kind of know exactly where to hit that dial so that it built toward the proper climax in the film. And so they really went above and beyond. It's like they're always great, but this film, I think they were really exceptional.
I want to talk a little bit about the house because it was kind of interesting. I read the house as kind of protectorate of the candle. The candle's in the house when the, I don't want to give anything away, but when there's a climax, the house kind of protects it during a time. And the house is interesting because to me it was a character. It even had a name, you know. So, and I know that and I know that it had to be designed. So I'm going to get back to Lorelay on this. It had to be designed in a certain way that it could grow, expand, and contract. I'm not giving anything away, but how did you approach that, Lorelay? How did you approach the design of the house?
I mean, it was a big challenge for our team for the house. I think it was an evolving design, you know, that happened even during the modeling phase. It quite emerged from what the earlier drawings were. So, I mean, we even worked with what helped me here with the virtual
the
VR. Yeah, the VR.
We worked with VR while designing the house, really, you know. So just to be in that space, you know, and we were just giving notes at the moment, and we had the directors there, and we had the story team there, so that they were emerging that courtyard, you know, or in the balconies, and we're like, you know, hearing just the notes like, oh, this has to be bigger or this has to be smaller, and you know, so on. But early on, like the first thing we looked at were houses from Barichara, Salento, and Cartagena, you know, from Colombia. So those were just like the few things that we used to construct this house. And then besides that, like there are a lot of moving pieces, you know, that happens with the house. Like, you know, the house has to be able to, you know, move the characters. So like we're gonna be putting a lot of tiles or a lot of like floorboards, you know. So depending on the room that they're at, like the kitchen, for example, has like all the counters have like tiles on because we needed that, you know, for you know, for the story, to serve the story. So we had to design accordingly to support, you know, those things. But it was a lot of moving parts, and it was an emerging design for sure that happened. It was, I think, the longest character that was in the design phase.
It was a house, yeah. And it works really well, and it works really well in its original form, in its dangerous form, and then again in its final form. It really is really great. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about characters, and I'm going to talk a little bit about songs, because there's a lot of songs. I think there's 13 characters if we count the house, or 14, Charise, as you say, but there's 8 songs. And they're done by some new guy I never heard of before. I think he's got a couple of shows. Yeah.
Oh, we give him a break.
You know, Ron John tell that story about Moana when they were interviewing composers for that show, and they liked this guy, and he said, so what are you thinking they might hire him? What are you up to now? Oh, I'm working on a show about Alexander Hamilton. Yeah. Oh, good luck with that. You know?
I like that. He's got moxie.
Yeah. So the songs are important. You know, the characters have songs that help to explain who they are. Was that always the idea? Is that how, or did the songs come about from the story, or did some of the story come about from the songs?
Well, I'll jump in. I mean, you guys can jump in as well. But just kind of give you a little history. Like, this is really rare because it's very rare that our songwriter is with us from the get-go. So literally 5 years ago, almost to the week, we were talking to Lynn right after Jared and he had kind of rolled off of Moana and finishing that great film, and they had a great partnership. And Yeah, and the idea that he was going to write this movie about an extended family was in the DNA right there. It was already in the works, and I think, but he, as you can tell from Hamilton, all this other amazing stuff he's produced, he loves complex things that he needs to solve musically, and that led him to some great stuff with like. Do you want to talk about Jared, the character of the songs through the film?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's many things. Like Byron said, from day one, we were working with Lynn. He's also super collaborative, as we all are. So it was really fun, I think, especially for Charise and I, as we were moving through the script and really starting to understand these characters. You would have moments where, of course, you'd have the story team bring in amazing ideas for what the characters could do, how they can move. And then Lynn would also be musicalizing. Maybe the character sounds like this. Maybe their song is in this genre. In Colombia, it's very important. Music is very, very important and very specific, as is the dance steps that go along with that very specific music. And so it was really important to Lynn to look at our movie as there's so much music in Colombia. How do we marry those musical styles with specific characters? So a character like Luisa, who's Mirabel's older sister, who's very strong. He's like, a reggaeton would be perfect for Luisa. Disney's never done a reggaeton before. That's a very specific style, but it's also has so much personality. And I think when Charise and I heard that for the first time, it had all this swagger and bravado, but then this amazing, also super vulnerable part of the song. It really changed our understanding of who that character was, and that rippled through the script. And we found that, I think, with all of the songs, the most, maybe one of the more exciting songs was actually "We Don't Talk About Bruno," which Lynn was like, I want to have a big ensemble song. It's right in the middle of our movie, and it's such a showpiece. It's literally every character. Everyone is also singing, everyone is also dancing, and there's a lot of story happening at the same time. It's like nothing I've ever seen before, and it's a story about a character that hasn't actually shown up in our movie yet, which is something I'm also really excited about.
I thought that was great. Here's the black sheep. Don't talk about him.
Yeah.
He's cursed. He made me bald, all these terrible things. And all these secondary characters, the town folks singing, don't bring him up. And he's going to get the story. We're going to find out about him because the weird uncle is always interesting. But and then you had to develop, Lorelay, you had to develop a whole place where this whole weird place that Mirabel has to go and swing on a rope and get through all the terrible stuff, like the cave in what the hell's the name of the movie? Harrison Ford, going through trying to do all that, and then finally, but only getting clues. You don't know what that is really. And then it helps to introduce the other character. I thought, and I love the song about the strong person who can't I just relax? It's too much for me, but I don't want to tell anybody that while I'm holding 12 donkeys in the.
I will say that this movie has the record of most donkeys ever. So I think we have that. If nothing else, that's what we have.
There's a moment in there. There's an animation moment in there where the donkeys are all standing behind Mirabel and she's singing at Mirabel and the donkeys all take a step back. I got a big laugh at that. Look, it's a little spoiler. So there's a score. You mentioned the score as well.
Okay.
And the score is by Germaine Franco.
She's amazing.
It's full of accordions and strings and guitars. It's not like it's a different orchestration. It works with all the songs. It's like I guess Lin-Manuel Miranda and Germaine collaborated on what the score would be behind the songs.
Correct. It's such a good team.
It worked really pretty great.
Germaine's amazing. We loved her work on Coco, and weirdly, I had worked with her years ago on Bolt because she was a co-worker, protege of John Powell, who did the score in that film. And Germaine is just so unique because she just genuinely loves how different music is around the world, and specifically with Colombia. Like, she was doing things like ordering a handmade marimba that got shipped to her in pieces from Colombia that they had to reassemble and put it in. And we have footage of her playing it.
He's playing it in the movie.
It's crazy,
so
but Colombia has all these like very specific, like when we were in Colombia, Jared and I and Lynn were sitting one evening in the middle of nowhere, and these three tiple players came to kind of just do this little mini concert for us. And tiple is a 12-string guitar-like instrument, very specific to Colombia, and it sounds beautiful. It sounds like a harp mixed with a mandolin, and it's so evocative. So she made it a big point to get Colombian rhythms, Colombian instruments that were in there. And during COVID, so she's recording all of these sections with people in their little, the woodwinds are separate from the strings in many sections, and the brass, and all of that over a period of weeks, and it's flawless. And that Encanto theme that she wrote, the first time we heard that, we kind of teared up because it's so magnificent, and she's a real find. She was really great.
Did a good job with both of them. Did a pretty great job. There's a song in there that is interesting because it's in Spanish initially. It's sung in Spanish. Two caterpillars. I can't pronounce it in Spanish.
Dos oruguitas.
There you go. And then later it's in English, I think, over the credits. And it's not sung by any of the characters in the movie. It's sung by a different artist. How did that one come up? I know it's a story point, but was the idea in that particular very important story point, was that idea was going to be a song all the way, or was it simply written as a narrative initially?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think Charise, you and I can both jump in on this. We knew it was going to be a musical moment very early on. We knew that we wanted that. I'd say that I think what you're talking about is that it's one of the few songs in our movie where it's not a character on screen singing it, which is what most musicals do. And for this one, we wanted it to feel like a song that had been around for 100 years. You know, Len said, I wanted to feel like this folk song that's always been there. Actually, Charise, you can sort of speak to this too. You know, there were early versions where Abuelo Pedro was a poet, and there were early versions where some of his poetry became musicalized and became a folk song. That's sort of the origin of, I think, why that song sounds like such a throwback. But I think the idea of doing it in Spanish was very important to us. Keeping it in Spanish, so it's not just in Spanish in the US, it's in Spanish in every market around the world. That was really critical. But we just love the idea that it sounded like a song that's been there forever, but kind of the soul of the song is kind of Abuelo Pedro. Do you want to talk about that, Charise?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that Lynn does so spectacularly well is that, like, he really is able to kind of make the music so character specific. And so, you know, we knew that for this moment where Mirabel and Abuela are having this moment of understanding, that was really, we're sort of in Abuela Alma's perspective. And so this kind of like beautiful folk song, like Jared was saying, that feels like it's always existed, felt like the right thing. And, you know, as he was saying, the character of Abuelo Pedro, like as we were developing the movie, he was sort of like a sort of poet activist for a while, and that sort of moved out of the movie. But I think the spirit of that like beautiful folk hero, folk song kind of spirit remained, and I think Sebastian Yatra does just a gorgeous job with that song in that moment. So it's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
I have two more questions because I think we have to wrap this up pretty soon. But the first question is, this is a musical, right? This is a musical. Now, some of you have worked only on musicals, and some of you have never worked on musicals before. What is the difference for those of you who've done both, or Kira? I think most of the stuff you've animated has been in musicals. You've on Frozen and Frozen 2 and so forth.
I enjoy musicals.
But is it different? I mean, Zootopia isn't really a musical. It's got lots of music in it, but it's not. The characters don't sing all the time. Yeah. So is it a different approach, or is it just we're doing a drama here and we're putting music on it? How does that work? And Clarice, I don't think you've ever worked a musical before. You've done plays, but not musicals.
It's true. It's my first one.
Yeah. How was it?
Kira, I mean, do you want to jump in? Do you have anything? Okay, well, I'll just say it was amazing. It was a dream come true. You know, I have never written a musical, but I've been a huge fan of musicals my entire life. Like I grew up like performing in musicals, and so it was just a thrill of a lifetime. Like, and particularly as a writer, as we were writing the screenplay, that was like a really big sort of learning experience because it was really eye-opening to me just how much story the songs could contain and how much sort of forward momentum like those moments of song give us in the screenplay. So it was I really credit Lynn just for being an incredible collaborator in that way, because I think it really started to become seamless as we developed the movie further and further, like sort of the moments of song transporting us really in such a profound way, like, and really helping the action of the story.
Guys, how do you feel about, is it any, well,
Well-
Kira loves musicals.
I think from an animation perspective, you know, everything is heightened. Like it's so fun for us to just kind of dive in to study the movement. We had vocal coaches come in, professional singers come in to kind of teach us like what is happening in the throat, what is happening with your tongue, with all of those things, because when you're singing, you really have to communicate where that breath is coming from for it to be believable in the movement. And so, and then you're pairing what the music is. And since Colombia is the land of 1,000 rhythms, there was a lot of studying to be done, but it's so much fun because it's all those little details that we all kind of geek out over.
Yeah. And we were talking about this the other day, but like Zootopia was a mystery, and Encanto is sort of an emotional mystery in a way. So that does have like overlap in an interesting way. I will say that off of what Charise was saying, having a song as a tool, like as a way to kind of like crank up the emotions. These are all like finely tuned machines that produce emotions. It's like, man, I gotta say, like when Lynn would come in with that music, or Jermaine wrote that theme for us that just lifts your heart, or just like tugs your heartstrings, it's pretty incredible. And then amazing artists like Lorelay and Kira and everybody who's our story artists who work in film, like all of that finely tuned excellence coming together. I think that's where I really just absolutely love animation, because there's just so much care in every little bit of it. And that's where like I tear up. I've seen this movie hundreds of times now, but I still tear up. So, and it's just all of these amazing people kind of coming together to produce something
we kind of
moving
forget
and incredible,
because music kind of pushes the emotion further than
Mhm.
dialogue. But that also, and if you're on the stage, they change the lighting.
Yeah.
Okay, put the lights down, put the lights up. Maybe they move props, but in an animation thing, you can actually go in and build a new set that can dissolve from the last shot. And I guess, Lorelay, you had to kind of do that, didn't you?
Yeah, and same as real theatrical plays, we would do the same thing with lighting. We would change it, and we would just make sure that it's helping the emotional character at the moment. For Luisa's song, for example, it's a heavy song, but it has a little bit of comedy. But even with like the change of color and lighting, we were playing with that emotionally as well. When the house drops on her, and it just changes the color, and it just builds up in intensity, and then when she goes up in the sky, with Mirabel, and she's just, everything's lighter and softer, so like those things were it was really fun to play around with, and just always trying to help the emotional side of the character and what they're trying to say. So
By the way, that song is really great because Luisa, I think it's Luisa, is the golden child. Who's the golden child?
Isabella.
Isabella, yeah.
Her song about, it's tough being the golden child. I don't want to be the golden child. I like to, go crazy here. And I'm marrying a guy because for the family, not because I'm in love with them. That was pretty great. I thought that was pretty great. I have one more question, because I always ask this question, and the other moderators from Asifa always ask this question of everybody. It was, and you've already mentioned it was a pandemic. You were home, right? And everybody else was home too. So how did you cope with that?
It was super easy. Yeah, just really easy. I mean, honestly, what most people know is we were just about to start production when everyone went home. We hadn't started, and we were sort of moving and we did everything from home. Everyone's workstations got moved home. I'd say that our movie is about a family, and we're in their house, and the movie was made with our families in our houses. So that turned out to be pretty nice. I'd say from like a thematic standpoint, something that I kind of really loved, honestly, was when everyone went home and everyone was on Zoom for the first time, everyone had their backgrounds on all the time, right? Background, I'm professional, I'm still work, background on. And I think by the end, people were like, yep, my kid's going to run through in their underwear, and my dog's going to jump in my face, and you're going to see my bed is super not made back there, and you're seeing my life. And our movie, which is about kind of seeing past the presentational version of ourselves to a little bit more of the reality, I found that to be the silver lining of a very difficult transition.
And you managed to get it done.
Yeah, everybody did beautifully.
Because everyone worked really, really hard and really put their hearts into it, honestly.
Yeah.
Any other? Everybody got it done, and everybody has some story like this. But you got it. You made a beautiful project.
Everyone did so well.
And it's homemade.
It is homemade. I think that's the thing.
Actually, yes.
We thought about that too. It is homemade, and we thought, the irony was not lost on us that people were making a movie about a house while being locked in their houses. And I think the fact that it's so colorful, it's so much about indoors, outdoors, about worlds within your house and getting to know your family. It was very appropriate for us to be kind of all locked in together working on this. And I think just that breezy openness of the film, the joy that it has, and just like the expansiveness. The movie wound up feeling way bigger, I think, than any of us in this room anticipated, in a great way. So again, we have to hand it to everyone for enduring all this and doing such a magnificent job. We're just so proud of everybody.
I really want to thank all of you: Charise Castro Smith, Byron Howard, Jared Bush, Lorelay Bové, and Kira Lehtomaki. It was very, very great of you to be here, and it was wonderful to talk with you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
This is where Zoom does not have a fade out. I don't know why.
I know. It's like,
why don't we can freeze frame? Can we just
yeah, we can do that,
and then we just sort of keep it there
on the count of 3. You ready? 1, 2, 3.